I have to get special dry shampoo that's like for dark hair so that it doesn't leave like white residue. Haven't they figured that out yet? Like with not technology, but like science.
Oh, they do. Like they have tinted ones and stuff, but I usually I'm fine. I just sprayed it a little bit too close.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
like all of a sudden you get like this white chunk.
Well, it will be fine for tomorrow, and it's just not fine for tonight.
Oops, that's
Yeah.
fine. Hi.
Hi.
Tell me how your week has been. Give me sweets and sours and all the things.
Um. Oh, sour. So yesterday, for no reason at all, I've got like a mirror, like a glass splashback in my kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing was touching it, and then all of a sudden it cracked. And it should be like heat protected because I thought, well, maybe like the heat from the back of my air fryer, but it shouldn't have happened. But it looks like I did it. So like I was gonna just try and fix it with some like resin seal, but then I was like, if that doesn't work, then it's gonna look sus and it's gonna look like I was trying to cover something up. So I had to tell the agent today, and I was like, I hope they've got insurance on it or like a warranty on it that the owners can just replace it for free. Because I didn't do it, so I shouldn't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
But but it looks like I did it.
I hope you can figure that out. That's icky. It's one of those things where you're like, I swear I didn't break it.
But even for like a splashback, even if I hit it pretty hard, it shouldn't have cracked.
No,
Yeah.
it should very much be like heat and everything protectant. When we moved into the condo that we're in right now, honestly, within the first like week, the air condition stopped working. And I was like, we didn't do that. Like, there's no way that happened.
Yeah, my old one, my air conditioner was leaking. Oh, and then I kept telling them, I was like, it's there's mold, like because it like the water leaks and then it puts mold on like the wall. And I kept telling them, and then they didn't do anything about it. So then when I moved out, I was like, whoa, fuck yeah.
You didn't do anything about it, so whatever.
Yeah.
Do you have anything sweet? Balance that out with something sweet.
Probably. I just can't think of anything.
Like nothing.
Maybe sweet. Oh, so you know how like I'm trying to get my strength back?
Uh-huh.
Well, like I feel very unmotivated by gym because I feel weak and I just feel like really lethargic, which we found out that my red blood cell count is dropping. They still don't know why, but my red blood cell count is dropping. And obviously, like your red blood cells deliver oxygen to your body. So that explains probably why I'm feeling so tired all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got CT scan tomorrow. But all the other markers have improved. But the positive thing was that I just hired a strength coach today. So nothing to do with like bodybuilding or hypertrophy, but I was like, my end goal is hypertrophy, but at the moment I just want to feel strong again. Mm-hmm. So I prefer to like focus more on building that up. I told him I still don't really care about doing big compound movements or anything, but I think working a little bit on like mobility and stability and stuff would be good for me at the moment because I don't have the energy to really put into my strength. And then and then work on just getting stronger in like my primary movements again. And obviously like with strength comes hypertrophy and vice versa. It's just not going to be solely like hypertrophy.
I love that for you. I think that's really good. And I think that's something really good to focus on.
Yeah. I thought like, because I'm not going to grow at the moment as much as what I want to. So I was like, as long as I can see improvements in my training, I'd probably feel a lot better. And I'll probably look forward to training more. Like I was just going to buy like a once-off program, but I thought where I'm at now, I'm a little bit hesitant to go too heavy. Not that like I'm afraid of hurting myself or anything. I'm more afraid of like how long it's going to take me to recover in between. So I think like I need someone to be like, okay, like weekly progressions.
Let's do this. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
sometimes like we know so much, it's like we get in our own ways.
And just like everyone, we get comfortable with movements, and we find movements that we like, and stick to them. So I'm not really going out of my comfort zone as much as what I would like to be. So new gym, new place, new coach.
I love that. I love that for you, and I hope it goes so well. It wasn't until probably about a year and a half ago where I was having this like playing this dancing game, like this back and forth between like, because before I did bikini bodybuilding, I did powerlifting and I loved it. And I loved the strength element of it and the challenge that I would go into the gym, and it helped me like not focus on what my body looked like, but how it could perform. And for me, like, I love powerlifting. Even until this day, if someone said like, if you had to choose between bodybuilding and powerlifting, I would do powerlifting. Like the empowerment that has come from it. And I love it. I have not touched a barbell in way too long, like years now, like to do a squat, hip thrust, or squat, bench press, or deadlift. But that for me is just like the most empowering feeling. And I love that. And I love the strength element of it.
Yeah. I remember that like I've always been, and you've been the same, like tiny but strong. And now I just feel tiny. So like I want to get the strong back. And I next month I start working with a branding coach. So like a business brand kind of coach. So focusing again on like social media aspect, but I'm also working with him to build up a school and promote that. So like do you know the school platform with Alex and Ramsey? SK.
Yeah.
So I'll build that out with him, and then he's just going to take like a commission out of it. But I prefer that rather than him charging me, because then like he's got an investment in it continually. But so far, like he's really good in he doesn't put out like the typical information or advice that most content creators put out, like have a compelling hook and whatnot. Like he talks about like what brands do well and what brands don't do well. And so on Monday, I was filming a bunch of stuff, and I asked him, because you know how I recently went viral. I was like, how do I keep up that presence now? Because I don't want it to just, you know how you see so many people go viral and then like you never hear from them again. Yeah, I was like, well, not that I care about going viral, but like I want to build off the new followers and like create a community with them.
Yeah.
And so he was like, okay, so on Monday when you film, what I want you to do is wear the same t-shirt again, because we know it works and we know that it gets people's eyes on you. And then he's like, with that hack squat one, you started off swearing. He's like, do you swear a lot? And I said, yeah. He's like, so swear.
Do it.
And I was like,
do it.
Okay. So I think we smashed out like 22 videos. But now like the audio wasn't connected to his camera. So now I'm going through and like each video I have to like fix the audio on it, and it's so frustrating. And I'm kind of annoyed with him because I'm like, this isn't what I was paying for. Like I was paying to get the raws and I would edit it, but I didn't have to think that I would have to add the audio too. That wasn't part of the deal. And like the past 2 days, I've just been, because it takes forever for them to download, and then like it keeps taking up all my internet, then my internet cuts out, and it's just frustrating. So I told him like next month, I was like, unless you get your audio fixed, I'm not paying for it. I said, I'll pay for the YouTube because my editor does that. But with the raw reels, I don't want to have to pay my editor to do them when I know that I can edit them.
You're like, I'm the one editing them. Oh, yeah. It's one of those things like it shouldn't be a thing. You're like, why is this a thing? Why am I wasting my time on this?
Yeah. And then he's like, well, it's time out of my day that I don't get paid, that like I don't get a paying client out of. And I was like, but yeah, that wasn't
your software and it's your equipment that you're fucked up on. So
yeah.
You know. Exactly. Can I just like mention that like we're totally twinning right now? Like we have the dark hair and the braid and the gray, and then like the bracelets and everything.
I'm so surprised your bracelet hasn't broken yet. Well, I'm surprised and happy. You take good care of it.
I'm super careful. When you mentioned it, I'm like, So fragile.
Yeah, I ended up getting different string for mine so they don't snap. But I've got your bracelet on as well.
I love that. So good.
It's just
I'm gonna jump in and share a couple,
yes,
I guess, like sweet and sours. I don't know if I have a sour. A sweet is this episode. Like, I'm just really excited to talk about this and the whole like everything about posing. It's so new to me, and even now, like, okay, so we'll get into it, but like, I'm a posing coach now for my coach, and it's kind of like nerve-wracking because I don't feel like I deserve to be a coach, even though like I've learned in practice, and like if she totally trusts me like with her business, that's really exciting. So just like kind of getting that experience and being able to now like talk about it, and I'm starting to get clients like here and online and stuff, and it just feels fucking good, and I love it. And that's my sweet. And then something that I've tried for the first time is I went to a chiropractor, and I liked it. I was kind of nervous. I've always been nervous about, you know, when they just like, okay, popping like joints and stuff freaks me out. That stuff, like, I don't like. I don't like getting blood tested. I don't like anything. I want like the insides of my body staying inside and staying how they are and like not manipulating anything. So I've always been like super hesitant to go. And I've never had like a serious injury. I've never felt like I have any kind of like imbalances or anything like that. I would, even when I pose, I'm like very structured. I have the same strength on my left side as my right side, like very, very even, kind of like to an OCD point where like whenever I carry weights at the gym, I will make sure I have the same amount in one hand as the other. Like I'll never always favor one side. So I was like, I don't think I need to go. And for 36 years, I've never had a need to go. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try. Let's just see. So, you know, when you like, for example, you go into the dentist and you haven't been in a long time and you're like, I floss every day, but you don't actually floss. And the dentist was like, yeah, well, we'll see about that. So I go in and he's like, how would you consider like your body and your mobility and like your posture and everything? I'm like, I would say I have a pretty good frame, but I'm sure that you'll tell me otherwise. And he was like, he said, like, I have amazing balance. He said, I have great muscle tone from left to right side. Like, there's no imbalances. There's nothing like posturally incorrect. You're not favoring one side more than the other. He was actually like really surprised. And he's like, and he called me like Elastigirl. He's like, you're very mobile. You have very mobile joints. He's like, which is great. But as an athlete and like bodybuilding, it's not really a good thing because I don't respond to hypertrophy and I don't respond to like recovery as well as I could be. I'm like, well, I can't really do anything about that.
So what did he say about like your posture and stuff?
So he said everything was really good. He'd kind of like laid me down and measured my feet. And he said, I don't know, one of my legs was like 1 centimeter longer than the other or shorter than the other. And he's like that. And he said, when I bend your knees, they're even when like you bend your knees up. So he's like, it's not something that you're born with. It's just something that's like off right now. So he did a couple adjustments and I was very cautious going into it. I had one person say like, don't go in unless you have an x-ray. And then someone else told me like, people have had seizures from like incorrect neck adjustments. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not just going to get them to start like snapping my neck around because that would just freak me out. But he just basically like, you know, when someone picks you up and bear hugs you and you just get like a couple little like pops and twists, like he basically did that. I like had one knee bent over to the side and he just kind of like pushed down a little bit as I breathed out and just like adjusted it. But he's like, yep, that was it. There was just like a couple little like shifts and stuff. And it was like, good. And he's like, you're going to come back in a week and we're going to make sure that everything's good and you're good. I was like, oh, that was nice.
You need to go back in a week. So this is where I have a problem with chiropractors because it's the same conversation with everyone. And they always like, it's sort of, a lot of physios do it too. It's like, okay, the treatment plan is going to be that you're going to come every week for the first like 2 months. And then after that, we're going to spread it out and stuff like that. And you shouldn't need to. Like your body, you're lifting weight. Your spine's going to get compressed. You're going to have like tight joints and stuff like that. So, you know, like a lot of these problems could be fixed by you hanging upside down for like a minute.
Yeah. I don't have
But
anywhere to do that. I'm like looking around my office right now. I'm like, where can I do that?
at the gym.
Yeah. I don't think there's anywhere to hang upside down unless I like
Or
hung
just even
upside.
hang up. Like just like if you're doing leg raises.
Oh, just like a dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do that. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's only like $20 for an appointment here. Like it's so
Oh,
fucking
okay.
cheap. Like it's so cheap. I'm like, are you sure? Can I give you more money? But it's good. So that was like something that I learned, which I'm really excited for, or something that I tried. Do you want to dig in?
Yeah. If it feels sure. I'm pulling it up now. Let's start. This is Femme Radio.
Let's
I'm
start.
Dazz.
And I'm Court, and we are redefining health. Just as usual, please make sure that you are subscribed and you leave us a 5-star rating. It takes like a literal second to do that. Just hit the 5-star. Thank you. So today we are going to be talking about the art of posing. And it's really important to express first that when you are a competitor, whether we're going to focus on bikini, but any kind of bodybuilding athlete, please don't overlook a posing coach. And this isn't like a plug for me, but also yes. But like we provide valuable insight and help refine your technique. It helps you not get in your own way and ensures that the practice that you're putting in is progressive, because you can be practicing the wrong thing or the wrong way and not improving. You could constantly be doing, let's say, the wrong turn or the wrong step or the wrong angle. And just because you're putting in the time to practice doesn't necessarily mean that you are progressing in the right direction. So having a coach, and we know this from like nutrition coach, a training coach, when they do form check feedbacks, like all of that, don't overlook posing. I think that is one of the hardest things, probably, if not the hardest things for most competitors to work on. But so many people leave it to like the last minute. And they're like 4 weeks out, 6 weeks out, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to start posing every day. And they just think like they're magically going to become like this graceful swan on stage.
Yeah,
So
I think like particularly for sorry, it's just that the internet's a bit delayed, so like I can hear you, and but your lips like move slower, so then I don't wait. Your lips move slower than what the sound comes through. So I know you finished talking, but I wait for the sound to finish, and then I go to reply. So it's just something we're going to have to tackle today. But I think particularly for females is it's even just like getting confidence in your heels, and because like for males, yes, it's like it's really about how you present yourself, like where you tense, filling in all the gaps and everything. But I think for females, we've got the added difficulty that, especially if you're not used to wearing heels, it is something that you're going to have to get used to. And that's where, like, I think we've spoken a few times about like even just doing salsa dancing or something like that it requires you to wear heels so that you learn how to like flow in them and how to pivot in them and how to step in them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. There's a lot of competitors that you see in any division, like any female division, where they walk very heavy on the heels, and the heels should be something that like you're very light in. And I've been doing this for like almost 5 years, and as a competitor, not as a coach. And it was only recently where I've been able to almost like pivot on my feet, whereas before it would be like these clunky steps. And I would consider myself a fairly graceful person, like very light on my feet and stuff. And I don't thump around when I walk and stuff. But the moment I put on heels, I'm like, I don't know, I just feel like this like awkward giraffe.
Yeah, definitely. And even like when I do wear heels, it's like out to dinner. So I'm like, as long as I make it out of the car and into the door of the restaurant, I'm good.
And then sit down and don't move. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm totally the same. What I ended up doing is, I'm not like plugging, but I use the Shoe Fairy shoes, and they have I guess like the lifestyle brand of Naked. And so basically instead of the 5-inch heels, they're like, I think they're 4.5-inch or 4-inch. And I wear those now when I go out. So it's a very, very similar feeling. So it just kind of like amplifies or adds on to when I am posing, and just like the practice and just like a little bit more. So it just amplifies a little bit. So I am officially an NPC and IFBB posing coach. I'm an assistant and teammate to my coach, Kat Kaufman. She's an IFBB pro. She's forbidden on Instagram, so I will add her on there. And she is the owner and founder of Katwalk Academy. I'll add like my booking link in the episode notes, or you can message me if you do want to get into any posing or check that out. So we're going to go through, I guess, like I put notes in order in terms of like what little things and what little like checklist points that we need to work on when we go through posing. So I think the most important thing is understand the criteria. And here we're talking about the NPC and IFBB in this episode. So before you even start practicing posing, understand what the judges are looking for. Watch Olympia, watch the Arnolds. Of course, I think more so in this federation, the rules and requirements are fairly consistent year after year. I know in the IFBB Elite, the other federation, the split of it, it does very slightly change. And I'm not like really skilled in it, but that posing seems to change a little bit like every year, at least here in Mexico, which is really weird. But regardless of what federation you're in, make sure that you understand what the judges are looking for and get the newest or the latest biggest competition and watch the top 10. Everyone's going to pose a little bit differently, but find like the standard. The judges assess your overall appearance, including your symmetry, proportions, skin tone, stage presence in all divisions. But I think like especially bikini, like everything matters down to your suit color, your jewelry, and then your posing puts it all together. How you blend and flow and move with your hair, with your suit, with your physique. And from the moment you step on stage, you are being judged, like the first step. So it's never like, I know with the guys, yes, they walk out and they have that energy, but like it's not until like you go into that box where it's like, okay, now you're on. With like bikini and with a lot of the female federation or divisions, the moment you step on stage, you're being judged.
Yeah, like the males, I was gonna do a posing skit on this for reels. But I can never be bothered to film it. But like the males, if you look at the bodybuilders after they hit their poses, like they totally relax and just send their gut and just like bend over and
girls can't do that.
The ladies like the ladies have to like keep that smile on, keep their core engaged and like stand in their poses. They're not allowed to just like go, okay.
Yeah, we have to be like on the whole time. And when I do like my clients, when we do posing sessions, I'll get them to hold poses. And it's like, yeah, because you're going to be like standing off to the side and you have to hold that endurance and you have to hold a smile too. Like all these little things make such a big difference. So learning the mandatory poses with bikini in the NPC and IFBB, there's only two mandatory poses. There's your front pose and then your back, and then everything else is a transition. So in your front pose, you want to be tall, confident, showcasing your side glute and a small waist, not leaning more onto one hip than the other. And then we have our back pose. So the stance is dependent on the person's frame, but usually about like shoulder distance-ish. Toes might be pointed in or out. Shoulders are relaxed, not pinched back. Hair covers the back to emphasize the glutes and the shoulders. And very much like important disclaimer, this is not a vagina shot. We do not stick our little hoo-hoos out to the judges. What we are trying to do is showcase our glutes and our hamstrings.
Yeah. Oh, I had in there, I wanted to ask you, so when it comes to like picking your side, as in like your front pose, like whether or not you stand with your right side forward or your left side forward, do you tend to go off what they feel most comfortable in, or do you tend like what position they feel most comfortable in, or do you tend to go more of like what looks the best and then it's like suck it, like you're doing this side?
We're doing this side. I will always like, if I'm starting with a new client, I will just say like, okay, show me your routine and show me like what you got or show me what you know. And I will see what they do first and usually lean towards that direction. But I also want to see the other side. For me recently this year, I'm posing on the other side, which is completely different. I've in 4 years.
Do you think it's worth teaching both sides anyway? I'm just thinking from the aspect of comparisons, and I had this like to note. I had this in the notes too, but you know, like when you have to stand off to the side and you kind of like angled out, because like it depends on what side you get put on, to what side the audience and the judges are facing, to what side you should probably choose for your front shot.
Yeah, I don't think it's mandatory,
You know how,
or I know it's not mandatory. Like if you're standing on one side then the other, you can still hit your same front pose. It's a matter of how you angle, because you'll see like maybe if off to the side, you'll see all the girls lined up, but then someone's like kind of turned the other way. That's fine as long as that's your strong suit. I think teaching both sides is great once the foundation has been done and the basics are applied. If if a client doesn't have a strong front pose, I'm not going to start saying like, oh, let's start practicing the other one too, because then it's kind of just like distracting and taking the energy away from that really strong front pose. If the opportunity is there to like work on the other side, if we notice that the client has like maybe I guess for lack of a better term, an imbalance or an inconsistency when they maybe turn into their back pose, because the back pose is symmetry, right? And if we see constantly like a shift or a twist or something, then it's like, okay, well, maybe let's see maybe where an imbalance is, or maybe we do have to go to a chiro or something like that, or work on a little bit of stretching and mobility. Or maybe we do need to teach both sides just to make sure the, I guess, muscular strength or stamina isn't overpowering on one side than the other. So I think teaching both sides is a great addition once the front pose and the back pose and all the transitions have been worked upon and like established.
Yeah, I think it looks good too. Like I don't know. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who particularly does it. I know one girl in Australia that does it, but when they flip sides, so like they'll do their front pose, say like when they come out the stage, they do like their front pose on one side, and then they walk to the front and they do their front pose on the other side. And I think it just shows, although like I don't think it like will contribute to the judging whatsoever, but it just shows that they've got a full package and a full round physique, and that they're able, like they've got kind of the I don't know, the skill to just be able to pose, I guess.
I think that's like a
And
huge
it's
skill
different.
to flex. Yeah, it's
and
a
it's
huge
different.
skill
So it captures your attention. Sorry. Sorry.
I hope this like works out well. Yeah, it's a huge skill to flex, but I think the one thing is like everything that you show on stage, the judges are judging. So if your left side isn't as strong as your right side, don't show that weaker side. Like only hit what is pro worthy or Olympia worthy. Like don't start going both sides. I actually did this yesterday when I checked in with my coaches. I did a turn on the other side, but then I did both of them. And then it's like, okay, well, now there's inconsistency, because if I hit my welcome pose or my welcome transition and on one side and it's not as strong as the other, now they're going to see a weaker side. And there's the inconsistency. And you're only going to get graded on your shittiest part, right? You want to go on stage, you want to nail your front pose, nail your back pose, and like basically get the fuck off so the judges can't start seeing flaws.
Yeah. Gotcha.
All right. Practicing transitions. Once we have the front and the back pose understood, then we work on transition. So moving gracefully between poses is as important as the poses themselves. Practice seamless transitions, ensuring that they look natural and fluid. Work on your pacing so that you don't rush through the poses, not holding them for too long. We'll hold the front and the back pose for about 3 seconds. Usually that is a good standard. And then the rest is about like a smooth flow. So yes, we do have poses in transitions, but we don't necessarily want to like stop, stop, stop. It's just kind of like this like touch and go point.
One thing that I learned from my posing coaches, which I still use on the rare occasions that I pose today, but less steps. So it was sort of like when you go from, say, like your side pose to your back pose, it's like one step, two step, and you're there. Like, don't kind of like take all these steps around to try and get there, and that's going to create that flow. So once you learn like where you want to place your feet, they stay there, and then it not only creates more stability so that you're like less likely to trip over your feet, but it just makes the whole thing look smoother, and there's a lot less to think about. So I think like that was probably one of my biggest takeaways, because like I was kind of like always like, you know, trying to add more things in, and like, nope, one, like right foot, left foot, you're there.
Yeah, less is better. That's something that my coach has been telling me lately, and she's like, for your frame, like there are some women, like you'll see some of the Olympians, and they have all this like extra stuff, and I think the extra stuff is great, but sometimes it's a distraction, especially as beginners. We see like the hair flip, and we're like, ooh, we want to do that hair flip too, or we want to do that extra little step to the side before we get into the back pose. And sometimes like less is better, because you had made a note like to keep your hips up in the transition. Sometimes the more shifting and stuff that you're doing and the more steps you take, there's more opportunities for error. So again, keeping it like super simple, hit your front pose, hit your back pose, less steps is way better. Less in this case is more. We want to be practicing in heels and competition attire. I think like posing after a workout is great when we can do it in like another area. I think that helps build confidence and certainty, and just like puts us in not really uncomfortable situations, but like different positions and places and environments. I think that's really important. But posing in your heels and a posing suit feels very different than practicing in gym attire, especially without heels. If we want to get good at posing in heels, we need to be posing in heels. I notice when my clients pose, they look very different when they send me a post gym video as opposed to like a proper check-in.
I think too, it's important to practice without a mirror.
Yes, do not be dependent on a mirror. I think that is, yeah, that I don't even have that written down, but I think that's really important. It's like training at the gym. You're not going to be like watching in the mirror. Like you need to have that body awareness. Sometimes it's great to have a mirror to like just make sure that how you're feeling is how it's looking. And maybe if like you're reviewing form, you want to double check like this is the right angle instead of like looking down and checking. But you want to develop that body awareness. And if you can start posing without a mirror, my opinion, it's the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, I think someone taught me, and I use it still today, but if you're always squatting in front of a mirror, you don't know how to squat, you know how to correct a squat.
Yes. It's
So
like
it's sort of
driving
like the
with a
same thing with
GPS.
posing. Like you don't know how to pose, you know how to correct your posing.
Yeah. This can be like applied to so many things. It's like using a food scale for your food, and then but all of a sudden like you don't know what 100 grams of rice looks like, because like you're constantly like you're offloading a responsibility and offloading the awareness that you need to adapt, and it's a skill that you need to apply. So absolutely, yeah, you need to know how a movement feels. One thing that I also do is, and I'll do this when I am posing in the gym because I think it could be dangerous if you're doing it in heels, is I will close my eyes when I pose. And I'll just like do it in between sets. I will close my eyes and I'll go in super slow motion and like just think about the feeling of everything. And for me, that it just like it makes it harder to balance, which kind of like offsets not wearing heels. But I think having that where it's like I will hit a pose or a transition and then like go through a checklist. And I'm not like looking around to see if something is correct, and that I remove the distractions, but it's like it just amplifies things when you close your eyes and you get that internal feeling. I think that's also a good thing to practice.
Mm.
And then record and review your practice. We record our exercises and our form checks, and hopefully we don't just like record videos for the sake of Instagram, but we record to review. And I think that's really important when we do practice, posing practice as well. So recording your practice allows you to work on the areas that you need to improve on. Watch the videos, see if your poses are symmetrical, check your transitions, but your stage presence.
Yeah, I love that. I just a note on what you said about practicing with your eyes closed. Pick a tune that you just find yourself like your body just wants to move to. And just put like headphones on and practice to that, because like again, the more flow that you can get, the better it's going to look.
Yes. I actually have a playlist that I use on, I made one on Spotify, and I call it my alter ego posing. And it's basically like I just put it on to kind of like get into that state and that mindset. One thing I learned in my last competition, which I fucking hate myself for, and it's something I'm like, I will not do this again, is I changed my pace of my whole routine based on how fast the music was going. And it was great because it looked awesome, but it was way too fast. So being like, yes, posing with like a great tune, but making sure you can control your pace as well, I think is really important.
I think that also goes into when it comes to comparisons. If you see a girl rushing to the front of the stage, don't try to keep up with her. Just keep to your own pace.
Yeah, I think that is really important. I hear a lot of coaches and people say, when you're doing comparisons and you're at the back and it's like turn and walk to the front, it's like you want to be that first one. Yes, you do, but not risking your posing. Some bikini girls like to turn like a lot quicker. It's not that all of a sudden like you're first to the front of the line and you get bonus points. Like that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Because yeah, like you said, like the one that's walking ahead is going to be the one that the eyes turn to, but you don't want the eyes turning to you if you're unable to do it well.
Yes, exactly. I would rather be the last one and know that I nailed everything. Absolutely. I think being the last one could also be a good thing because everyone's already there and everyone's frozen and you're still moving. So it could work out the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you either want to be first or last.
We see a lot. Yeah, right. So one thing that we see a lot, and maybe I noticed this more because of me living in Mexico, and there is such a crossover between NPC and the IFBB Elite, which is like the other, like the European federation. In that federation, there is so much hand movement. Like it is big. And like they are like swans and all over the place. And I don't know if they get like judged on that or they get good or bad points for that, whatever. But in the NPC, less is better. Like it is. And when I teach my clients who are beginners, I'm like, just keep your hands down. Don't move them. Like just keep them there. We will add them on later. That is like an extra bonus. But the extra hand movement can be really distracting, or it could emphasize your physique. Like it could be a great thing. It could highlight some strengths that you have. But if you're so focused on like your hand movement, and the more that you move your hands away from your body, the less shape that you're creating and the less streamlined that we want. So a couple like little notes is make sure your hands don't hide your glutes, especially in the front pose and when you're transitioning into the back. There's this thing that a lot of girls do, and this is like a huge ick for me, and I fucking hate it, is when girls are setting up into their their back pose, they do this like hand crossing behind the glutes, and like I get what they're doing, but when it covers your butt, don't do it. Don't do the sweep. Like a little bit of hand movement to the side, but when it completely covers your glute, it's like you don't see it and then you see it, and it's a fuck no for me. In a good way, it can help.
This is so bad. You know, when you go to do a photo shoot and they always tell you like soft hands, soft facial features and things like that. Like they because like one thing that I always found was when I was with my arms, I was always very tense, and I didn't feel tense, but I was tense. I don't know if that's just because I was uncomfortable, but it was very hard for me to kind of like loosen my fingers, loosen my hands, loosen my elbow joints. And so if you kind of think about it, like when you do a photo shoot, and like the cues that they give you from that, like they want you to look relaxed, because if you look stiff, like it's going to show up in the photos, and same thing, it's going to show up on stage. And like Court kind of said, like if your hands are way out to the side, it's distracting.
Yeah, I always say like just soft. And I think this is where it becomes really challenging, especially for bikini. I would say even wellness, I would say less figure, that when we get into bodybuilding posing, or we get into bodybuilding competitions, it's usually stemmed from, I love training in the gym, I love my strong physique, let's add in the posing. That's like the thing that comes after, where it's not like some girls like, I love posing, I'm going to start going to the gym and being a competitor, you know, like it kind of works like in the opposite order. So when we go into the gym, when we have that foundation of training, we're very rigid. We want to be tight when we do a squat or we do a movement. We want to have tight form and we want to be in control, and we don't want to be like moving our joints and extra limbs when they're not being used. So, and then transferring that going into posing, it's like, okay, now do the opposite. You want to be like jointless. And jointless, I mean it like really flowy. And it has taken me 3 years to like get loose, but loose not to the point of like loosey goosey flailing everywhere, just to the point where it's like loose enough and it's like your arm is not like locked at your side. Like just relax it a little bit without like shaking things out. Your hand placement and arm positioning and the flow of your arms can help make your waist look smaller by keeping your elbow closer to your waist. So instead of like a straight arm in your front pose, if you relax a little bit and you can't even see, but if you have your elbow like a little bit softer, it just kind of like fits into that like curve where your hip is. And that can like your arm position, your hand flow can make that look better. And it also helps create flow between transitions, which I think is really important. I always say, like I said earlier, with beginner clients, like when in doubt, keep your hands on your thighs. If you're going into like your welcome pose and then you're transitioning into like the back pose, like don't worry about like the hands and how they move and stuff. Like just keep them on your thighs. Let's just keep them where they are, and we will add them in later in a way that feels more natural for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, imagine trying to brush your thighs.
Yeah. And it's always like keep them low. So I have some tips that I always give, like myself, but then also my posing clients that I just kind of like want to run through. So I'm just going to run through them all, and hopefully the audio doesn't cut out. So practice in slow motion. Don't just do your individual routine each time you practice. Don't just like walk on stage, front pose, back pose, walk off. Repeat. So go to the like back to the front, turn to the back, turn to the front, walk to the back, do comparisons, repeat, repeat, repeat. Like see how long you can maintain the smile, your endurance, your posing, like all of that stuff. Don't just like go on and go off. Review previous feedback first, then go in slow motion. Go through a checklist at each pose and transition, top to bottom. So like, where is my head? How high is my chin? Am I smiling? Are my shoulders relaxed? Am I like pinching my shoulders? Are my hands like chill or how they need to be? Go through all of that every time you're going through posing. So I see a lot of, not necessarily my clients because we work on that differently, but a lot of competitors or like NPC competitors, they will just like practice their routine without like reviewing their coach's feedback. And it's like, yeah, but you're not practicing the right thing. Like, so we're not making forward progress, but you're putting in the reps in like the wrong direction. And we don't want that. Your walk, and I know that you asked about this, is your walk is the first thing the judges see. The moment you step on stage, that is the energy that you are giving, and that is the tone and the pace that you are setting. So you had asked, and I'm just like jumping ahead about like tips and stride length. When it comes to walking, I think the most important is like start with the foundation that is natural to you. Like just walk. Just start doing catwalks. Yes, go ahead.
I thought that might work better because then, then I know that you finished talking, or you know I'm about to talk. So I saw someone give tips on they run like one of those posing academy things. So like they have their posing academy page on Instagram. And one thing that she said was like she tends to find that taller competitors need to take like longer strides, whereas the shorter competitors need to be like a little bit more bobby with shorter strides in their walk. Do you find the same thing?
I think a lot of it depends on if you're tall in your legs, or if it's like your legs are the most empowered or the most like dominant part of like your long or your tall physique. And I think it is what keeps your hips and your glutes up. I have recently put more emphasis on there's a difference between you walking to the front versus comparisons walking to the back. Those aren't necessarily the same walk. Because in the back pose, you really need to make sure that your glutes stay tight and your glutes stay up and you don't have striations when you twist. That doesn't matter when you're walking to the front. The judges don't see that. So I think what is most important is like, or the foundation of walking is start with what's normal and then what keeps your glutes and your hips up. If you're taking such big strides where your hips are kind of like sinking down each way when you walk, the walk is too big. If you're losing your shape or maybe you're not able to hold your vacuum, it's not as good. If, like for me, I would say I'm a taller competitor. I'm technically 5'6.5", but I know that when I walk to the back, I have to take small steps because I get glute striations way too quickly. So I need to keep that fullness.
Do you have tips then, as far as like the upper body movements go in the walk? Because obviously, like if you're front on, you run the risk of like your waist appearing bigger. So like and that was something that I could never nail, is like the flow between your shoulders and your hips, to always have like that slight angle on your waist.
When walking to the front, I think it's really important to hold a duck pose. So you don't just want to walk like casually where your body is like super upright. You still want to walk in, I guess we want to call it like your ready pose or your bikini pose, where your hips are still tilted to the back and that your glutes are still up. Your glutes still have to be up when you're walking to the front. Otherwise, it is going to look sloppy. And then that's usually when we tend to step really heavy. So if your glutes are up, you're going to walk a little bit lighter because you're forced to like be in that upright position. As for the hand movement, and like I've heard some coaches will say like twist with your shoulders or lead with your shoulders. I've heard some people say to lead with your hips. So start like turning with your hips and leading that way. Your hands, I would say it's best to let them flow very naturally. Some people will just have them kind of like flowing. I'm like roboting right now, but flowing more like front and back. Some people will have like a little bit of a twist. I think it's really individualized. I think what is most important and the most basic is how do you walk normally? Then maybe emphasize a little bit of flow with your hands and then find that like sweet spot in the middle. So finding the two ends of the spectrum where it's like, okay, what's too much? What's a little bit too much hand flow and how does that impact your physique versus walking with like arms at your side, and then find that sweet spot in the middle and what's kind of natural. I feel like my walk is one of my weakest elements. Also, I like to get in my own head with posing and I don't think it is, but it is something that I'm consciously like very aware of every single time.
Yeah.
So one thing I did also note, my little tips, is bikini posture, consistent bikini posture throughout the entire routine. So when we walk on, we want that like lower dosis, or your hips kind of tilted up so that your glutes are kind of like up and just like, I like to emphasize or say like that Kim Kardashian butt, where it's like your hips are tilted up and you have that water bottle or your protein shaker cup, whatever, on the top of your glutes. It is often said that, sorry.
A lot of these things that like you're pointing out, we see even in like the Olympia stage. We see people look down, we see people drop their glutes, we see people relax their core or stand up too straight, or I don't know, I wouldn't say rush their walk. I don't think they really do that in the Olympia so much. They've usually got plenty of time. But even like just doing too much in the routine.
Yeah, there's sometimes, I remember like our first episode was reviewing Olympia. And I remember when we saw Laura Lee's routine, I'm like, whatever she does at the beginning, like for me, I just don't like it. It is not something that I would ever do or encourage or something, but some people can get away with different things.
I don't mind the front pose, the first pose that she does when she walks on stage and then goes to walk into the front. But I think that she definitely does wave her hand around too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely some things that I even see on the Olympia stage and I'm like, what are you doing? Like that is not how you should be posing, but it's it's what works for them. And a lot of it, like when you have put in so much time and you've gotten to that point, if you feel confident with that, fucking go for it. Like own that. If you can do that and make it look amazing and show great energy and everything, I think bikini is one of the most important divisions where your energy matters. And just like that vibe and that stage presence. It is very commonly said that bikini is one from the back. So whenever we are looking at like our front and our back pose, like I think that's something that is always like really, really important. I'm going to motor through these next couple like little points that I don't want to overlook, and then we can go into the routines. Vacuums are super, super important, especially during transitions. That is something that like we can talk about later, or I actually have a recent reel that I posted on how I do vacuums. I've noticed that a lot of people do them very differently. I have learned from a few different people how to do vacuums and or like hyporepressives, and everyone has like their own little ways and like connections that work for them. But what I like to think when we are posing and we're on stage is the photographer is taking a photo of us like every second. So if we've ever gotten stage photos, we will get tons of them from the judges or from the photographer. And remember, there's only two poses. There's only front and back, but the photographer will send us maybe 50 photos or maybe 20 photos, and a lot of them are transitions. So every time you see where it's like you're half blinking, you're half smiling, you're looking down, or like this awkward hand placement, think about that every time that you are working through transitions and your routine, so that every photo ideally would almost be perfect. That is something that I always think about. When you're going through your posing routine, and not just with practice, but when you're on stage, think about if you're executing a routine or if you're presenting your physique. There is something very different from going on stage and being like, okay, I am one of the 100 bikini girls and I have to do the same routine that everyone else does, and you're just like another person in line. Or are you going on stage and you're like, hey, look at me, I am presenting my physique. There's totally a different energy between the two of them. The more you practice, the more comfortable and confident you're going to be on stage. Confidence shines on stage and completely sets you apart from other competitors. I have seen, and I'm sure you have seen, that someone maybe not with the, I'm going to say, best physique knows how to present it really, really well. And they might not win, but they might place higher than someone who might have more developed glutes or whatever it is. Fierce energy. Practice like it is the stage. Don't just like practice at the gym and being like, oh, I'm just in practice. Like pretend that every rep and every routine that you do, it is like you are on stage, like you're being judged. Like I mentioned earlier, have a playlist. Have a playlist that like gives you that dark feminine energy or like that badass stage presence that makes you just feel like really fucking good. And then start to play that in your mind every time you practice. Working on endurance, sorry, go ahead.
Can you add your playlist to our resources?
I will. I'm going to make that a little note. Working on endurance, I think, is really, really important. So like we said, holding that front pose on the side. There are some shows that I've seen, I haven't been in this position, but there are some shows that I've seen where there's maybe 50 competitors in the class, and you have to hold your front pose on the side of the stage and your smile and your vacuum and your posture and your tall glutes for 5 minutes. And even though the judges aren't necessarily judging you from the side, they can see that. And that matters. You had mentioned a couple points, so I'm going to let you take over right now and then transition when you're ready.
Oh, I kind of already went through them. The only other one that I had, this goes part of your face energy, is to always like smile while you're practicing. And I put a note there to have a short and a full routine. This is more so for like amateur shows, because sometimes we found it a lot in Australia, the shows are running behind in time. So because bikinis are last on, they tend to rush it. And you usually get told to be quick, to just go and do your front pose and whatnot. And it can really throw a lot of people off, particularly like when you had in your head that you were doing your full routine. So I think having that in the back of your mind that might be something that does happen, or even maybe like a routine for comparisons, which would be a shorter routine as opposed to your full routine. So yeah, have 2 routines, a short one and a full one.
Yeah. And I think it's, yeah, basically where you can just like cut out. And at that point where it's like, where do you cut out that point? It's usually when you turn from the back, you don't hit your second front pose again. You turn from the back, you're in like usually in your welcome pose, you just wave and walk off. That saves 10 seconds, but 10 seconds over a lot of competitors, that adds up. I think that's a great point. So thank you for calling that one out.
Sometimes even though in like the Australian shows, they've just told us to go and do our front shot. Like just go hit your front shot because they're going to do the back shot comparisons. And it's annoying. It's annoying because you've just paid like all this money for a posing coach to get a full routine together. And now you just ask me to do my front
You're
shot.
like, I did nothing. But yeah, I get that.
All right, so we're going to go over the top 5 routines from Olympia. 10 was going to be way too long, so I'm going to start from Jennifer Dory. We might only get through 3. I don't like Ashley's posing, so I don't really care if we don't get to it. Just sort of side note.
Let's just do 3 then. Let's just do 3.
Do you want to open the links on yours? Because I don't know if it'll let me share my screen.
Yeah, but I don't know if I can do screen shares because I was having issues before.
So see that button? It's like a square and an arrow that says present now.
I need to hide all my porn on my screen. Just kidding.
Oh,
raise hand, present now. Allow to share window.
Present. Yeah.
Are we seeing this?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're going to get the advertising in Spanish. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
This is Mexico. Okay, so this was from a couple of years ago, but that's okay.
Oh, I thought I got the, sorry.
That's okay.
Anyway, Jennifer
I'll go through the whole thing
consistent.
and then, yeah, I'm going to go through the whole thing and then I'm going to mention a couple points because I can kind of do like a screen dub or scrub through the video. But yeah, I would say like her, of course, there's like little changes, but I feel like when you're an Olympian athlete and you have that routine kind of like locked in, it's like, don't change what's working.
Can I just say that this would have been when she was with James?
Oh.
Her posing's gone downhill since leaving James. Not much, but it has. So if you look at like her most recent shows and the most recent Olympia, her front poses aren't consistent. Whereas like here, you could literally like layer them on top of each other as a silhouette and they would be the exact same. She like when she was with James, she always hit the exact same spot. But since she left James, she's not so consistent.
This I don't like. When you do the over the shoulder look, whether it's this pose or whether it's transitioning into the back, keep a long neck.
The back.
I think that is something that constantly happens.
And the back shoulder should be like rotated this way a little bit more, like towards the front.
Rotated like back so that we can see it, or no?
Yeah. Yeah, so the back shoulder should, like the one that we can't see now, we should be able to see it. So it should be rotated to more towards the judges.
That's interesting because I wouldn't say that. I don't want her like at this pose. I wouldn't say that she should be showing her back so much. But that's just me.
Maybe not with how her hair is. But if she rotates that shoulder a little bit more to the front, it's going to create more of that X frame.
Yeah.
So like a little bit of a softer knee.
Yeah, and having that her right leg more straight. But everyone's going to hit it a little bit differently. Anything else that you would say like call outs?
No, I think her transitions are very, very flowy. I think she plays as well.
Yeah. Shoulder down.
Yeah, but I don't like the bringing the shoulder up. Like, I'm cute.
I like that she doesn't do a hair flip. She does when she does now, but she doesn't hair flip Or she didn't hair flip here. Okay, I'm hoping this is gonna work. You can still see this, right?
Yeah.
Oh, look, we can pop up onto my Instagram.
Mhm. So this one, I couldn't find it on YouTube. This was the only thing I could find on her page.
I didn't like her posing as much. Actually, I don't think I really like her posing, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Just like the little, did you see when she was going into her welcome pose, she did that like foot twist?
Yeah, I think a lot of, I was just about to say, I think a lot of her errors come from not knowing what to do with her feet. Because I think posing always comes from like the feet up.
Yeah.
And she's kind of stepping all over the place. And you see in her transition, she takes lots of little steps.
Yeah. I also know that I think because this was, no, I think it was last year that the carpet at Olympia, like the flooring was horseshit and it's like really hard to walk on. So that's why I think it's important to be able to be really good at walking in heels, but not just on hard surfaces. I'm not saying like you have to walk on like pillows or rugs or something, but being able to pick your feet up and not rely on twisting. See how she twisted there? I can't pause these videos, but when she twists, it's very hard. And that's probably why she was taking those like extra steps.
Yeah. All right. Laura Lee?
Yeah. Is this from this year?
Yes. Hopefully. No. Oh, no. That's
No,
close enough.
that's okay. If I can zoom in a little bit.
You think it'd be easy to find? I was typing in Laura Lee 2023 Olympia.
Sometimes it's even like typing in Olympia first and then 2023 and then Laura Lee. I don't know.
This is the pose you don't like.
No, she did it this year, not in 2022. She did this like hand flip shift thing. I love her energy. I don't think I love her actual posing, but I love the energy that she has on stage. Like when she steps on, you're like, fuck, she's on
Are her
stage.
shoulders more towards the judges?
Yeah, but that's also the transition.
No, she did
I
it when
was
she
more
first turned
so,
into it.
I'm gonna go back because I have control over this.
I think she's yeah, she's very charismatic and she's very easy to put your eye on.
That.
No. Wait. Yeah, that's, I knew you were talking about that, but I'm talking about what we're saying about Jennifer with the back shoulder more to the judges. Watch when she does her turn.
Okay, yeah, when you do the turn, yes, I think you should always be on a 45-degree angle, more or less, like that.
Wait, yeah, there. See how that back shoulder is more towards the judges?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks better.
When I had paused on Jen, that was when she was setting up into her front pose.
But okay.
There's, I'm gonna pause it again because I'm that person. Watch how her hands, like that. You don't need to flip your hands that much. But she's an Olympian and she can get away with it. But I would say most NPC people, girls, should not get away with it.
She also got told at this Olympia that her glutes were too big. So I don't know whether or not it's necessarily taking away from her physique, the fact that her hands go in front of her glutes.
Yeah, that's true as well.
I don't think she's doing that intentionally, but I think like in this particular one, it didn't really harm her that much.
Yeah, I think her energy and stage presence, I love it. I love that she holds like the little pauses. And one thing that's important as we progress is where your eyes go. Like if she's looking down at her glutes right there, it's like you're looking down.
Mm.
Being able to like look out at all of the judges. Look, she's looking down, you're looking at her glutes. Super important. Okay. How do I stop presenting? Yeah, we're still good. That was my first time. Yay. Okay. Was there anything else that you wanted to go through, or is that like a good, we're gonna wrap?
Hire Courtney for posing.
Right, yeah, hire me for posing. Thank you for that little plug. I will drop my details, even though I haven't announced it to the Instagram world. We're now announcing it on here, and I know that's going to be announced very soon on my coaching team. So that is it for this episode of Femme Radio. I loved this. I think this was great, and thank you so much for letting me highlight my art of posing and talk about all of this.
No problem. Make sure that you're subscribed and connected with us for more discussions and empowering conversations that redefine your health.